Let's go, Chris. Hello, Fausty Witches, and hello, Faustiest Witch of them all. How are you doing today on Boxing Day morning / the night before Halloween?
Yeah, weird and wonderful as usual.
Okay.
Sorry, just completely thrown by the cowboy farmer karaoke.
You love it. We haven't had no karaoke for a long time, and we've got to build up to the potential Fausty the musical.
Oh God.
We could do one at the end of the season, couldn't we? Kids,
Fausty,
what are we going to call our Fausty Witch viewers? Faustlings? Faustlings? Is that really a word? Faustlings. Faustlings. If you want us to do a musical, you need to tell us in the comments, all right? So, the aim of the show is we are going to discuss something extremely important and extremely serious, but the best way to do that, to get maximum impact, because we're really trying to change the occult world, you know, is to do that on two big days of the year. One of those big days of the year would be Halloween, which we're not doing a Fausty Witches on Halloween because that's technically tomorrow, or Christmas Day, which is also technically yesterday. So what we have every year with the Fausty Witches show is throughout the year we do the Fausty Witches show, but then it is re-released on YouTube as a little advent calendar. So not only is it, what is it, the 30th today? Must be the 30th of October 2022. But the next time this airs in the future, which, Chris, I've actually ordered something from the future. I've got my seasonal Pringles, right? It's brilliant, this witchcraft stuff. You can just do stuff like that. Order stuff from the future, drag things up from the past. I'm good at dragging things up from the past. My friends hate it. But anyway, what we want to talk about today is, well, what springs to mind when I say Wiccan Pedia?
The way in which they search, a Wiccan search through magic.
Okay. The way in which magic is learned,
yes,
or taught,
by
or
keywords
cataloged.
only.
Okay.
Keywords only.
Keywords only. Hashtags, yes.
Hashtags.
Okay. So we'll have to discuss that a little bit. Another thing, Wikipedia was, bearing in mind there are children in cages and such, like literally in various places, was the idea of this thing called pedophilia, right? And this thing that we are seeing a lot of problems of in religion in general, you know. I mean, I know we look and appear to be in a Catholic church at the moment, but it ain't just the Catholics, right? Oh, Father, forgive me for I have sinned. And I'm about to again. There are quite a lot of cases, both currently that I'm aware of, but also has been in the past, of people within the magical community, in the pagan community and stuff, exploiting other people in a sexual sense. So whether it be children or whether it be adults or anything like that, I think is a difficult thing to discuss, and the only way to discuss anything difficult is to do it in a light-hearted way. So I'm thinking we need to discuss, I think, magical practitioners on their path so that they don't get into a bad situation. What is appropriate, what is not appropriate, things like that. What would you do in a situation? You know, various things like that. So we'll start off with the first bit, which is obviously about the learning, which you said. So we'll go for a stereotypical person called Timmy. Little Timmy, okay, was raised. Are we going to go Christian? We're going to go atheist, Islam? What do you want to go?
Any of the above.
Any of the above. Well, let's say he's Catholic because we're in a Catholic church, recording this live from a Catholic church, right? But say little Timmy was a Catholic and now he wants to go into this witchy stuff. He's interested in this witchy stuff, right? And he is coming from a background where there's quite a structure to it. I mean, I know because he's Catholic, he's probably halfway there towards practicing some form of magical witchcraft, but that's besides the point. He likes the structure. So because he likes structure, he's going to seek out others that can teach him, probably in a structured way, whether that would be a coven or organization. Maybe he's going to flirt a little bit with 1 minute becoming a druid, you know, one of these modern druids. Next minute he might flirt with a little bit of a blue star Wicca, perhaps, you know, those lot. I mean, I don't know why you'd really want to go with them because they're completely fucking nuts. They're totally crazy. But anyway, little Timmy does want to progress. So he wants to seek out and he'll join some sort of an organization. Now, little Timmy's used to being exploited. Like I already said, he was Catholic. So, you know, he's been on his knees an awful lot. Might be developing some sort of joint pains, maybe. I don't know. He's got stories that he's not willing to tell, but they are suppressed. Might come up in shadow work at some point in the future once he knows what shadow work is and how one can do that. What we want to do is we want to ensure that little Timmy doesn't get locked up in a cage, whether that cage be in his mind or a physical cage, and exploited by some would-be I don't know, teacher, a guru, that kind of thing. So, Mr. Chris, what are some of the warning signs that you would spot and you would think, oh, this is a little bit weird, this is a little bit uncomfortable, that little Timmy can take on board?
So the big, because I'm assuming we're wanting to talk about the kind of abuse of the kind of very Sith variety of master apprentice.
There are many forms of exploitation. There's financial exploitation. I mean, these people that want to exploit will use every trick in the book. So let's remember that although little Timmy is currently in a cage, one of his mind, you know, this person has come along and they've said, little Timmy, I'll give you the key. And he's held out his high. They say, look, little Timmy, I'm going to teach you a technique, okay? You need to, it's very magical, right? You need to concentrate. You need to close your eyes. Little Timmy closes his eyes. He gets taught these various magical, you know, like things of power and such like that they do. Ceremonial magicians or something, right? And little Timmy has to do these things. He has to go and do the magical thing. He has to close his eyes. He's told to open his mouth. Okay. Little Timmy feels something in his hands from inside the cage. Something. Why? He thinks it's familiar. He thinks that it's something that he felt many years ago during childhood. But he cannot remember. He needs to do shadow work, then he will remember. But little Timmy is expecting this great occult teacher to give him the key to the cage. In reality, when Timmy opens his mind, there's a dick in his hands, and it ain't his own dick either. So it's not just about sexual exploitation. It can be about many other different forms of exploitation, like financial exploitation, being forced to or being segregated. Some of these cults, like the Mormons and that, churchy types, they get you in the community, make you dependent on the community, make you pay for the community, and then threaten to chuck you out if you disobey. Yeah, all of these things. So yeah, sorry. Little Timmy's advice: what is the first thing to watch out for? What has little Timmy got to look out for? Is it like a lollipop episode, that lollipop thing from what's the one with the flying car and the child catcher?
Oh,
Chitty Chitty Bang
Chitty
Bang.
Chitty Bang Bang.
Yeah. What Timmy shouldn't go for the lollipops when there are no children around. I'd start thinking, why are there no children around? And there's some geezer selling the lollipops. Little Timmy's not smart, hence why he was considering being a Wiccan for a bit. So,
sorry, mind blown. That was quite a journey, Liam, that we've just gone on.
So I'll rewind. Right, going back. First warning signs for some form of occult exploitation that you might see.
I'm gonna say something that's probably strange, in the sense that someone that constantly tells you you are special in any context,
right,
has a tendency to be in a situation where there is a power balance being made. If it starts with you're special or you're gifted, I think that's always a troublesome place to start. I think that includes lots of different groups that focus too much individually on that. This concept of, you're special, come join us, we're special with you, that kind of.
So, like my year 8 PE teacher used to call me his special little boy. Mr. Khan used to call me his special little boy. There was warning signs there for me. It made me somewhat uncomfortable. And I suspect I was not his only special little boy, because I mean, we only had a couple of lessons with him, and then he had to leave the school, and the teacher said they weren't allowed to talk about it. So,
Oh, I don't know how I'm going to be able to take any part of this seriously, but I will soldier on.
When it's right down your throat, Chris, you'll take it seriously then.
Oh dear. You just completely throw me, Liam. I have no idea what you want from me or what I'm going to do with it.
So, first question was first signs of, occult exploitation and stuff.
Yeah.
And I suppose you've kind of referred to them like almost whining and dining you. I think there's a term grooming.
Grooming.
Is that a thing? Grooming. So you're watching out for some sort of grooming.
Yeah.
So it's like the opposite of what we do, because we tell people, you think you're special, honey, you're not. All the time.
Yeah.
So
you're all shit.
You should be worried about when people are complimenting you when you haven't fucking deserved it. Right?
Yeah.
What have you done? What occult significant thing have you done? You shouldn't.
Which is tricky to do, because often any kind of abusive relationship is based on normally you feeling shit. So taking advantage of a moment where you are vulnerable is where that is. So for a lot of practitioners, that is feeling lost. So needing something from someone else. So from a practice, in a more kind of practice-based way of talking about this, we are talking about that kind of scary moment where you are vulnerable and at risk because you don't know how to get to that next point. And the kind of golden nugget might be, that little carrot being dangled, the lollipop from the child snatcher, is that someone has told you, oh, come over here, we'll teach you, or I'll teach you. I think there are more opportunities for abuse in a one-to-one arrangement than there is in a group setting. Not saying that doesn't happen. there are lots of groups where one or two that are leading the group are just feeding off all of you. But any group, I think the first thing to kind of watch out for in yourself is, like Liam said, do you feel comfortable? Are you uncomfortable in that process? Is your first kind of, because it won't start that way. It will start with the gifts and the feel special. And then it will move to kind of something will normally be asked of you that you're not comfortable with.
Yeah. The compliment and then a request.
Yeah. A compliment followed by a request.
Can I touch them?
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So Jason's actually put, some occult groups love to attract people that need to feel special. This is very true. A lot of I've seen this happen in churches where they almost prey on the weak and vulnerable, because the people that have got happy lives and money and love in abundance, they're a little bit more difficult to prey on than someone that really needs to be bailed out of a situation or really needs some support. And then when you offer up support in a community, they get their grubby little mitts on you. So next thing I would like to talk about is this idea, I think, of what's at stake. So why, if that person, little Timmy, because a lot of people that get themselves into these situations do feel uncomfortable. And they are feeling something on the inside, like, I don't feel comfortable, I don't like this, but they're convinced in some way, shape or form to keep going, whether that would be a voice in their head or whether it be something that is, a little bit more coercive, whether they're actually turning around and saying, no, you need to. I know this might feel uncomfortable. Everyone feels uncomfortable, but keep going with this. You just need to trust me or trust the group or trust the process, right? I use the term trust the process all the time. Doesn't mean that I'm exploiting people though. An advantage of working with Liam and Chris is that they regularly tell their mentees how shit they are. Oh, Jason, thanks, mate. But no, the idea, I think, is that, okay, little Timmy's left the Catholic Church. He's looking to seek out the truth, the answers. He finally wants his questions answered. He finally wants to learn a little bit of magic. Okay, there's some creepy ass guy that offers to teach him stuff, and he really wants to understand the occult stuff, but the creepy ass guy, he kind of touches him a bit awkwardly on the knee an awful lot when he's explaining occult concepts, and kind of licks his lips a lot as well, which is kind of making little Timmy a little bit uncomfortable. But little Timmy thinks, but this man, he's got the answers. So do I just keep going a little bit to get the answers? That's what I see a lot of in the occult community, because occult and magic is a secretive thing. A lot of these things happen behind closed doors and are very, very secretive. And there is a big difference between, there's a difference, but it's a difficult difference to tell from the outside. What is something that is some kind of magical practice? What is some kind of next level bullshit and exploitation? I mean, just because the man that owns the Chinese fish and chip shop does a Tai Chi in that down the local park, does that mean he's gonna be able to teach you how to fight? Possibly, possibly not. I mean, we're operating there on a stereotype. Just because there's some old geezer that wears a cloak that says he knows magic and comes from some sort of occult background with magic books on shelves and stuff, does that mean he can actually teach you something? Well, a lot of the time it's the victim, the person that thinks, I'll keep going because it will be worth it. I'll keep going because there is no other option. And I think we can tell you that there are plenty of other options. And the biggest first port of call, the first hurdle, the first problem I've seen is that people don't realize that. People don't realize that actually there are other options. It's one of the reasons why I see a lot of people making Faustian deals with nefarious spirits. The spirits understand that they're preying on you because you're a fucking idiot. And they understand that there's numerous other spirits that you could go to, or just learn to do the thing yourself. And yet, how many people get caught in these stupidly binding contracts with very low level astral beings for basic ass magic that they could master literally in a couple of weeks if they put their mind to it, or if they got the right sort of tuition? It is crazy. But then at the end of the day, if you are genuinely thirsty, starving in the desert, what would you give for just one glass of lukewarm water?
I think what is important here is to remember what you actually want from the relationship, because ultimately that's how this happens, is because it is a relationship. You have a relationship with a teacher. When it's a large group of people and it's a teacher, it's quite easy to spot ego. It's quite easy to spot narcissism when there is a group of you all following, because that means there are other people you can talk to. Go, do you feel the same way? Does he seem a bit dodgy to you? Like, there is somebody for you to have that conversation with. I think what's difficult when it comes to one-to-one teaching relationships is that is far more intimate instantly, because there aren't other people around.
Yeah.
So in that kind of relationship, it's about kind of what am I comfortable with, and checking yourself, checking in with yourself. Are you just tolerating this because you don't think there is another option? Because there is a tendency to talk about magic in this kind of mysterious way, suggests that there are less people practicing than you actually realize. What there is less people practicing at a high enough level, but that doesn't mean you should tolerate a bad teacher. It's the same way, kind of like, if you can only get hold of bad books, doesn't mean that that's all that's out there. You just need to keep looking. You will occasionally find the golden lines in a bad book, but that doesn't mean you should stop looking for the perfect book. So
a lot of these dodgy occult teachers cast quite a wide net. Okay. And it's a lot like scams. So if you look at scams, like internet scams, where they claim to be, they'll email you and say, oh, I'm a prince from Dubai and I really need you to give me, £10,000. I'll give you £1 million, but I've got my bank account locked, or something like that. People think, well, that's stupid. How do they ever catch anyone with that? The reason why they do that is they create a situation that is so unbelievably stupid that you'd have to be so stupid to fall for, that the only people that do fall for it, because they're not going for people with a little bit of common sense, they're going for people that really have no common sense and don't have a clue what they're doing and probably shouldn't be trusted on their own to manage their finances. But there we go. They create this thing that is so low that anyone with a little bit of common sense ignores it and doesn't necessarily report it and thinks, well, this is so stupid, how are you ever going to trick people? But 1 in 1,000 people might be tricked by it. That is the customer of that dodgy scammer. It's the same with a lot of occult organizations, which I've seen, is that they cast quite a wide net, but that net is designed to catch a specific type of prey. Okay, and that's the only prey that makes it through the net, or makes it through the first stage of the net, and then are slowly weaned off until you end up in a cage like little Timmy here. But okay, so what's the next stage? So imagine you've got yourself into a situation with an occult practitioner. You're thinking there's something about the occult practitioner, something about the relationship that you're thinking, this is a little iffy, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure, Mr. Liam. I'm not sure, Mr. Chris. What is this? Because there are people that have practices that are, there's people that do sex rites and things like that. There's people that do various other things. There are people like us that are rude and cheeky, right? Just because someone dislikes the practitioner, thinks they're an asshole, it does not necessarily mean that they're evil or twisted or wrong or can't teach you anything. I was an apprentice, and I was an apprentice under a number of different people. Some of them were nice people that I got on with, that I genuinely liked them as people. Other people, I thought that they were abhorrently disgusting and horrible. But I still worked with them. I still worked for them. I did still learn from them. I'd prefer to have learned from someone else. But that was the situation I'm in. But I would have had a cut-off point, you see. So where is the cut-off point, do you think? How can we best help people to navigate that cut-off point? Because it's got to be personal to a certain extent, hasn't it?
Yeah, I think every situation is different. You know, the best way I can describe it is, you know when a relationship has turned bad. You know when something is, this is no longer working, whether or not that's a bad relationship with a boy, you know, an ex-boyfriend or whatever. There always reaches a point where you're just like, this isn't working. And the question is, at that point, is why isn't it working? If the answers are you're not working hard enough, or you're not asking the right questions, or one of those things, then it's probably that actually the practice is the thing that you have a problem with. If you're saying, I can't give any more than I'm currently giving, this is costing me too much, etc., etc., those kind of hallmark questions of kind of going red flag, those are the ones where you're having to kind of think, is this worth it? And then it's about exit strategy, which is difficult because there are too many different ways to describe potential opportunities. From a magical point of view, particularly if you're in a relation, you know, in a setup that involves particular deities, that is always something to be considered on an exit strategy. Is you don't want to be causing more problems for yourself on the basis that you've divorced the entire process, not just the person that you needed to leave or the group that was toxic. You need to actually go, is there a better way for me to have this relationship with that entity? Often, again, it's all about, offers are normally made by nefarious things when you're in your worst situation. So chasing the deity down for a buyout is possibly the worst thing you could do if it's tolerated putting up with the individuals in that group already. So, you know, you need to be considering that on a wider situation. Who is your get out of jail free card? Or in that situation, 9 times out of 10, it needs to be you. And it needs to be you that has that kind of power to leave.
Being preyed on in a magical sense is not going to be something that most people starting out are going to be able to sense or understand. They may have a natural instinct towards it. Should I put my own blood in that bowl? Do I really want to do that? Is quite a common thing that people will, like, we don't do rituals that really involve anything like that. But some groups do. And from the person that is the perspective trying to work out, well, wait a minute, am I doing something magically binding here? Is this a big thing? Or is it just the fact that everyone in the group does this? I don't know. I don't understand. You know, these are all questions that ultimately you should be able to ask the person that's teaching you or helping you progress through this group. I would say that one of the best ways to avoid something like that happening is to broaden the amount of people that you have communication and contact with. So there's a big problem, I think, with occultists being addicted to collecting books and YouTube channel subscriptions and all this and that, and listening to so many different people and never actually doing anything themselves. They just listen, note down, listen, note down. If you're going to join an occult organization or group or working group, I think it's a lot safer to actually get to know multiple ones. And some people would think that's obvious. A lot of people don't. There are a lot of people that are the very linear thinkers, like very mercurial. Oh, I've decided that would be strategically the best. I'm going to go and put my all into that. So, for example, if you thought, this thing, I like this idea of the god and the goddess duality, I'm going to explore that. Look, there's a coven. they're calling themselves some sort of thing. They say they practice Wicca. I'm going to go with that. Where actually what you should probably do is you should think, okay, there's that group of people. Now I need to find a couple of other groups of people so that you have something to compare and contrast the differences with. Because you might go there and you might like it, or you might go there and not like it. But actually, what's really important is that you develop as quick as possible some idea of being able to assess differences in practice. And you can with some groups, like very informal groups, like, you know, moots and things like that. You've got people that might do the odd thing together, but they're not really in a group, cohesive group practicing the same thing. If you've got a coven, you know, or a working group like that, they're all in it together. They are a cohesive group. They've probably got a structure. Trying to understand other structures and how other people do it as a complete beginner, I think that's so underrated. It really does help you to get your bearings.
I think there's a focus often, and I think the best way I can kind of talk about it is to say we all have our favorite things. You know, we all have, you know, our favorite chocolate or our favorite dessert or favorite meal, but you couldn't eat that meal all day every day. Doesn't matter how good that meal is, after a while it will no longer taste as exciting as it would the first time you had it. Now
then you've never tried Pringles.
Oh yeah,
they are addictive. They put something in them that makes you think.
It's called salt, Liam.
No,
it's
there's
called
something
salt.
else.
That's all that's in there.
And if you get bored of one flavor, you switch to a different flavor crisp.
Well, that's my point. You're switching flavors, so you're not eating the same thing forever, are you?
So what you're saying is to go from stereotypical Gardnerian style Wicca to Alexandrian Wicca to Blue Star Wicca.
No, you're saying that you'd be able to survive on just Pringles. I'm saying you shouldn't.
On just Pringles. I couldn't survive on just Wicca. I don't even want any form of Wicca in my diet.
Exactly.
I don't understand why you would be. I don't understand why people are Wiccan. What do you think the best thing about being a Wiccan is?
Someone holding my hand all the time, I guess.
A Wiccan, I think, is their prerogative to have a little fun. That and the cakes and elf thing. I think one of the biggest benefits is that it is a group of magical practitioners that rarely do any actual fucking magic. So the best thing about it is probably community. I don't know.
Dress up.
That or you just get really horny for goddesses. No. I do find it very strange that in basically Wicca especially, I mean, you could say this about Neo-Paganism, but I think it's especially true in Wicca. You've got a lot of women and you've got some men in it, and they talk, it's very goddess orientated a lot of the time, despite there being the duality, and it's supposed to be kind of fertility culty, isn't it, a lot of the time? Why is it that like 90% of the men in the Wicca seem to be gay? Because shouldn't they be horny for the goddess? They wear the horns.
I'm not answering that one.
Is it because you don't know the answer? Or is it because you don't want to offend?
Have you noticed
it, though? Have you genuinely noticed that? There is a lot of gays in Wicca.
Yes. But it's quite simple why that reason is. It's about this overselling of the divinity being an alternative.
It's very feminine orientated. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
And gays like feminine shit. Is that what you're saying?
No, what I'm saying, that's not what I said at all, Liam. What I'm saying is that the alternative to a god. So in the Western world, most people are used to some form of Christianity and therefore have this focus on a masculine deity. So when you're looking for the alternative, you naturally go towards the opposite of that, or at least what people consider to be the opposite, is going towards that female version. And that's what they're chasing.
I've noticed this, Jason, right? all the straight guys in the whole neo-paganism thing, they do seem to sway more to like the whole North Sea style, Viking-y looking-esque thing, that kind of aesthetic. A lot of the gays seem to go more towards the witchcrafty stuff, which is really interesting. I find that actually quite genuinely interesting. It's stereotypical and it's not true 100% of the time, but I tell you what, there ain't no fucking smoke without fire.
No, but you're also talking about vocalization, though, aren't you? So what you see is the loudest voices. So the loudest voices are going to be the gay men in Wicca,
is that because they're all
or the ultra feminists, because they're the loud voices in any room, but they're particularly loud when the others are quiet, sulky kinds, which is what you get in witchcraft, is lots of broken people that are attracted to something alternative.
Yeah.
But the broken, mousy people are not going to be the ones shouting about it, are they? The ones shouting about it are going to be the mouthy queers and the ultra feminists.
Ooh.
So what I'm saying is, you know, you are dangerously close to making a stereotype out of something that's not true, because those are the loud ones.
I'm just going by what I see.
Yes. Well, visibility is what I'm talking about, Liam.
Mm.
Visibility is based on those that shout the loudest.
I'm not saying that there aren't any straight people in Wicca, but when I look back and I look at the stereotypical people that are associated with different branches, like we're talking about little Timmy finding his people, you know, it is one of those things that there are a lot of stereotypes and there are a lot of really interesting things within the communities of magical practice. But then I don't sit back and really look at that because I tend to look at the magical practice. And I do forget that a lot of the time, obviously, you've got religions, religious practices, and community orientated stuff. Like, I'm so surprised the amount of Norse people or, you know, Northeast style people, heathens and such, that they don't really perform any form of magic whatsoever. You know, it's kind of like I thought that was supposed to be like a really magical path, but like there's none of it in there whatsoever. You know, but then you can say that about some of the other ones. I think a lot of the time it's religion, isn't it? Because I mean, Wiccans often refer to themselves as witches, but they're like the complete opposite to classical witches, I guess. I don't know. I mean, this is an exploration about exploitation and trying to avoid exploitation. Obviously, that isn't the main part of this episode. The whole point of this episode really is how many Shania Twain bits I can jam in here and there. That was the idea of this episode.
I know that was totally the
but as a secondary important bit, a subtitle, if you will, we could venture deeper into this idea of exploitation and such. Have you ever witnessed any crazy ass exploitation or had to jump to the rescue of anyone that's been exploited? And bearing in mind, I already know that you have. I'm just wondering how many stories you would want to come out with.
I don't know. I don't think many of those stories are appropriate for Fausty.
Live television is not television, it's internet television. That means that I'm sure there's less Ofcom rules.
So, but I do feel like there is often an opportunity there for those stereotypes are what puts a lot of practitioners off, which is, you know, you go to moots and things like that in the hope to meet open-minded individuals, but what's normally happened is those other open-minded individuals have been scared off already. So what you've got is a small group, like with a lot of churches, a small group of sycophants following an individual ego that has actually made them get there, which unfortunately a lot of that happens in all sorts of magical groups like that is because someone that's open-minded and has a goal isn't going to stick around and tolerate it waiting for the right, for the wind to change. They're going to go, oh, that doesn't work for me, and we'll go try something else. Especially in a modern world now where we're just used to picking from a menu. So, I don't like that. It's, I've watched the first 3 minutes. It didn't grip me. I'm moving on to the next show because there's so much choice. And I think what's dangerous, particularly about the Insta-Witch revolution, that's the only way I can describe it, because it seems to be arguing against something, but I don't think any of them are actually aware of what they're arguing against. It's kind of, and naturally pushing against something, but that's all we see, because we have the algorithms of YouTube, etc., that will focus on the things that are prettiest, the things that have the most buzzwords in it that they can algorithmize. I wanted a word then. Categorize, that's the word I wanted, into their little algorithms in order to make all of that work. And then you just get the focus on. Because let's face it, we all go to a group thing and there might only be one person we click with there. It's whether or not you find that person to click with quick enough that you want to tolerate the rest. Or you'll want to take that individual away.
Now you're sharing. Now this is relevant to your own life, I can tell.
What? Relevant to my own
You're
life?
describing about things about moots, as tolerating the moot and the group, so that you can just have a conversation with one cool person, then trying to get that cool person away from the group so that you haven't got to tolerate the group anymore. I'm following along.
Which is what tends to happen, which is why you get lots and lots of shit moots about. It also helps that, in the 90s, lots of egos came along, known as the Pagan Federation, destroyed them all in the UK. But that would just be a completely different
I don't think they ever really conquered the north, did they? Did they ever go as far as Scotland?
I don't know.
I don't know how. Never managed it. I doubt the Pagan Federation would manage
I don't know. They seem to dominate the rest of the UK, so I wouldn't be surprised. The question is whether or not, maybe moots were just too English to begin with and they don't do them up there. I don't know. I can't speak for Scotland.
You can't speak for England, is that what you're saying?
I can, on the basis that I've experienced enough of it.
Liam, would you categorize making new friends as poaching cool people? I wouldn't categorize making new friends as poaching cool people now. However, I do know that Chris has attended, let's say, moots where there are annoying fuckwits, and that there is one cool person there, and that Chris perhaps has, instead of thought, what's the most economical thing to do, continue to turn up to this thing where it's full of fuckwits, or just get the one cool thing and take it away. Do I make that part of my general practice? No. Generally speaking, I've got a reputation for doing the opposite, which is basically maintaining the group but getting rid of the fuckwits you don't like. See, Chris is a lot nicer. He takes the cool people away and leaves the group alone. I just start to break the group.
I don't know. There may be a turn. So the last conversation at a recent moot was that we need to start taking over the other moots now. So it now may actually happen in that way round. It doesn't normally, just because I don't have a lot of free time, and spending my free time dealing with fuckwits, I do enough of that at the guild. I don't need to do any more of it in the rest of my life.
The Guild of Fuckwits. One shouldn't have volunteered there. I feel more Wicca-orientated practice gives more power to stereotypical feminine attitudes and approaches, whereas heathenry feels a bit more testosterone-y. Interesting. Again, that's kind of a stereotype, but I don't think that it's a stereotype now. I think the problem is, at one point, it
I think
started
it's now
like,
just called truth, Liam.
yeah, when at the start, I think that because so much stuff has been put out with a certain perspective and with a certain style, you know, that now that is the public image of that thing, and because that's the public image of that thing, then all of the people that are attracted to that thing or what they like as that public image flock to it, and it just kind of goes from there. Really, things aren't very cosmopolitan. I guess people just gravitate to where they feel safest. Potentially, I'm not sure. People gravitate towards where they feel safest. I think that safety, from what I've seen, there are a lot of people that flee dodgy backgrounds and end up in more dodgy backgrounds or even dodgier backgrounds. So whether this would be stereotypically some person that was going out with an abusive partner and then they trade that abusive partner in for an even more abusive partner, or whether that be one person that was in some sort of dodgy evangelical church and they trade that in and go to some other dodgy evangelical church or a different type of religion or something. I don't really know.
But in that is safest, Liam. So
Back to what you know.
What people do is they go back to what they know, which gives the illusion of safety. It's not because it's actually the safest place. It's because Stockholm syndrome is a reality for a lot of people. They gravitate towards what they know. So people that have been from a churchy background will gravitate to something organized in that kind of way. So going to the same place, eating shit, drinking wine can very quickly become, eating the blood and
the flesh and blood.
The flesh and blood of Christ
to
I'm going to have ale and cake, where they're talking about this female deity instead, is very similar.
Bearing in mind this episode is partly sponsored by Pringles, do you think that if the Christians that do practice the whole sacrament thing, if they replace those god awful shitty wafers with Pringles, do you think they'd get more converts?
No, but I cannot believe that you're sat there eating Pringles.
Why?
It's just got no respect for anybody.
Well, I have respect for some people.
I like this one from Jason. Jason says, got it. Wicca is Christianity in drag.
They've traded the cross for a pentacle.
Exactly.
It is for a lot of people. I mean, some would argue that it's a mystery cult / mystery tradition, but I think the problem with that is that you have to get quite far in Wicca to find any mysteries, and you've wasted an awful lot of time. It's that thing, I forget what they call it. I'll look it up.
I don't know what you're referring to.
The sunk cost fallacy, where you invest a certain amount of time into something, and then you think,
yeah.
Oh, I've invested this much time, so I'll stay.
Yeah.
What else have we got? When you have a group of vulnerable people who themselves have given up everything to be part of a group, it's not necessary for just the leader to be threatened. Groupthink is a powerful thing. That's very true. Getting basically the sheep to police the other sheep. Yeah.
Hive mind.
Never been to a moot, because I'm worried only Wiccans will be there. It depends on the moot. I mean, there aren't any Wiccans at the moot I go to anymore. Read into that what you will.
Yes, we're potentially taking over a Wiccan, not Wiccan group.
Someone feels called out and it hurts. I'm not entirely sure why they feel called out and in what way it hurts.
I can't. You're just continuing to crunch just to wind me up, aren't you?
Oh, I forgot about the crunch. I'm sorry. Wiccans are rampant around these parts. Well, if they continue to breed, Helen, go to speak to your local MP and see if they can start to introduce, like you have duck season and pheasant season, a Wiccan season where you can take your shotgun out and shoot at some of them to stop them from overpopulating. There are only so many trees to be hugged.
Like she says, it's the new Forest Coven's fault. Well, after they stopped Hitler, you know, they can do what they like now, can't they?
Well, they didn't stop Hitler. I think they just, Uncle Gerald and friends, one of them died apparently, doing the ritual shortly after the ritual. They just tried to stop Hitler coming over. The problem is that I don't think Hitler was really planning on going in and trying to invade the country himself. I think he had minions. The minions were the dangerous ones. Hitler, little guy, toothpick mustache, one testicle, not really a major fear. I think all of the people that went and worked for him, the Nazis and that, they were the problem. Definitely. But anyway, any more warnings and advice for would-be people that are looking to learn magical practice from other people? And then we'll answer the question everyone really wants to know.
Okay. I think just more of the same, really, which is, I think it's important that you aren't only hearing one voice. So what's really important is that you're, you know, if you are on that Wiccan path, regardless of whether or not you should or shouldn't be there, the Wiccan path, you should be reading around that and speaking to people who practice other things. And I think as long as you are being involved in some way, shape, or form, and that might only be watching podcasts by other people, you know, like, so that you actually got an experience of the, you know, Rosy Christians or whatever. Like, you know, just pick other groups that you just kind of like, okay, even if you don't particularly like them, but just so you've got some contrast so that you recognize something is afoot, and that you are growing outside of just that. Like how we often talk about, you know, if you're reading for 10 hours, you should be practicing for at least 10. It is that kind of thinking. If you spend 90% of your time with one group, you should be trying at the very least to give 10% to somewhere else. You know, it's the same when you're practicing a craft of any kind. It's important that you don't only listen to other woodworkers. Occasionally you go and talk to a metal worker or a textiles person, because you'll see something in their practice that might spark a new way to do yours. It's that whole not operating as an island. And just because you are with other people doesn't mean you aren't operating as an island if all of you are in that kind of echo chamber of you're doing the same thing, which is quite easy to do when you've got a kind of strong moot situation or a coven, is because there will be a leader within that group, and you don't want that to become the only voice you're used to hearing. I think we have it with some of our mentees sometimes where I'm only hearing myself back, and at that point I'm kind of like,
they quote you back to
you know, and at that point, you know, you're only listening to us,
and that you've joined the cult.
You know, and that's never what we signed up for.
Not proud to admit that I tried Wicca, but I got better after looking at my practice with a critical eye. Also, it gave me indigestion, Jason says. I've heard said Gardner started Wicca just to get young women naked, sky-clad. I don't think that's entirely true. I think that Gerald Gardner had a very big interest in collecting magical practices, and when he got enough of them, he jammed them together and tried to pretend that he somehow inherited a tradition.
Now,
Where-
Aleister Crowley definitely went
Yeah.
round wanting to fuck everybody, but
Yes, and get fucked by everybody.
yeah,
Helen says, then again, if most Wiccan men are gay, they won't breed and will hopefully die out. Right, okay. Helen,
going for Darwin.
back in the day, we're talking years ago in the 50s, you might remember that. In the 50s, when the Wiccans started to populate, there was a lot of kind of couples. There were a lot of straight couples that were into Wicca and such like that. The gays and that didn't really kind of take over until later, okay? Which you'll be able to tell when the gays kind of took over, because that was when Wicca, when they were doing the kind of rumpy pumpy great right type stuff where there might have been sex involved and then there wasn't sex involved and then it was symbolic and then there was, oh look, it's a JJ, let's just do all of this symbolically type thing. When that started to happen, you'll find that the Wiccans started breeding not through stereotypical sex, they started breeding through social media posts and really shit books. That was how new Wiccans were created, not through eggs and spunk. There we go. Have we got any questions finally? Rude questions, preferably, Helen says.
No, Helen
I
said she didn't
know.
want rude.
I'm just doing that thing where I twist people's words, right?
Yeah.
Don't fucking ruin it.
Well, I'm going to ruin it because you are fucking rude. Helen was definitely not around in the 50s.
No. Where was she?
She wasn't even a twinkle in a mommy's eye at that point, I imagine.
Right, so any final advice? Because there's one thing that we do need to answer. It's a very serious question, but I just want to make sure that we put it right at the end.
So there is no, I don't think there is. I think it's just important that you operate as widely as you can, and you're mindful of whatever group situation you get in. And by group, I mean digitally also now, where it's very easily to become one of the groupies of someone on Twitter or Facebook or whatever, or Discord rooms, where there is they very quickly can become echo chambers, and it's just important to make sure you're mindful of that.
I don't think some of these Neo-Pagans need to operate any more widely than they already do, if I'm honest. But there we go.
How rude.
Oh, right. So, final question, Mr. Chris.
Go on.
The Thoth, Thoth Witchcraft kind of umbrella, which includes the No Holds Barred Witchcraft podcast, which also includes, the Thoth Mystery School, which also includes the Witchcraft Live Facebook group, which also includes basically all of the stuff, basically, that we do, like Thoth TV and all that jazz, right? Is this shit a cult? I know it's occult with the O in front of it, but is it a cult?
I don't think so. I think we're very good at putting each other against each other. So even if it was one camp versus another camp, obviously mine camp is best.
Sorry, I just saw Jason's question as the final question.
Oh, okay. Sorry. So yes, so I think we keep it fairly safe, because what people will do is kind of gravitate to one of us, and then then that person will scare them off to the other person. So they're constantly moving amongst the two. I think so. Never settle long enough because we don't agree often enough.
So we're not a cult.
I don't think so.
We're a cult, but we're not a cult.
Yeah.
Do we exploit people?
I don't think so.
Not as far as I'm aware.
I feel like I'm the one being exploited by all the time that these people take and that enough of the people listening need to join the fucking Patreon and at least assist in the cost of this.
They need to pay their £3.50 a month,
Yeah.
don't they? Right,
So-
last official question. Jason says, "Oh, I have a rude question. MFK, Gardner, Sanders, and Lady Snake." So I believe that means marry, fuck, and kill.
Oh my
Gardner, Sanders, and Lady Snake. And you have to do one of each to each of them. You cannot just kill them all, Chris.
No. That's really difficult. But you're going to make me go first, aren't you?
We have got another insult, by the way. You need to be controlling, manipulative to be a cult. You are not either, guys. How fucking insulting is that? We're both controlling and manipulative, I'll have you know. We're very good at it.
But mostly towards each other.
Yeah, but so good. They haven't realised this is, in fact, a cult. But anyway, who would you marry, fucking kill out of Gardner, Sanders, and Lady Snake?
I'd have to kill Gardner.
Do blowjobs count as sex? Because you say that they don't. You say that's the gay equivalent of
A handshake.
Yeah.
Yes.
So he's got
no,
to be
a blowjob
full on,
is a handshake. You'd have to have full-on sexy time. Of the penetrative kind.
Well, I think we all know who I'd choose.
So I think I would kill Gardner. Marry Lady Snake. Because I find that would be entertaining. One, as I slowly torture her to death. Because that's what marriage is about, right? Slowly torturing someone to death. And then I'd probably fuck Sanders.
I think marriage is about, the game is who lasts the longest, doesn't it? So you try and drive the other one into an early grave. So you had quite a Venusian way of thinking about that, in that there was a certain amount of passion and let. I'm going to be just very cold, clinically mercurial, and logical. Gerald Gardner's dead already, so I can't kill him. Sanders is dead already, so I can't kill him. Lady Snake's still alive, so she is, by very definition, the only person I can kill. Therefore, I have to choose to kill Lady Snake.
Okay.
Who's richer, Gardner or Sanders? I do want to believe, from what I understand, that Gardner was probably more wealthy. I also don't have to stay married to him for long because he would have been quite old at the time. Therefore, I would marry Gardner for the money, which means that I'm going to have to fuck Sanders. But then we basically fuck over a lot of his followers today. So why not fuck the original? And that's it for this episode of the Fausty Witches.
Man, I feel
Like a Wiccan.